Wonderful. Hello, everyone. I'm so excited to be here speaking to Synthia. She's one of our amazing Kids Yoga Stories ambassadors, and we've known her for a while, right? Synthia, we met you last year properly while you took our school yoga program last summer. And then we did the school yoga lesson planning course. So we've been watching your journey. What I love about your journey is that you started last year. You were, well, not last year, you were a special education teacher, and then you left that and turned a whole business into teaching yoga to preschoolers. So I love that you're always learning and adapting and motivating yourself to do what's best for children. So the reason I wanted to talk to you today is that we hear a lot from our community about, great, everyone loves teaching the little ones, right? But how do you plan for the little ones to keep their attention? And what does a preschool yoga class actually look like? How do you engage their attention for 20 to 30 minutes? So I'd love to speak to that about that today. But first of all, let's talk about your background. So you were a special education teacher. What made you decide to switch over to starting your own kids yoga business?
Okay. I had actually been an educator for 20 years. And although I ended my career in education teaching kids with diverse needs, that was never my certification area. I just sort of wandered into that based on I was looking to do something else a few years ago. And at the beginning of COVID, I took a 200-hour teacher training, something I'd always wanted to do, but never had the opportunity to do. And then I connected with you when I was doing a 95-hour children's yoga training with Shawnee Thornton Hardy, and she had mentioned your books, and I hadn't made the connection of your name with your business until then. So then I had signed up for the school yoga boot camp. And at that point, I didn't have, when I started that class with you, so I guess that was like 18 months ago, yeah. I did not have any experience teaching children's yoga other than to my own child. So my goal that year when I was returning back to the classroom was to teach the academic subjects at my school and teach yoga every day and have the opportunity to get my hours to register as a children's yoga teacher, which I did. So by like the second week of school, I had kind of decided that I'm going to do something else next year with just teaching yoga and mindfulness to kids without a real plan. Just I'm going to do this next year, and this is going to be my last year in the classroom in the academic setting. And then I sort of, I was working on that and teaching my classes, which were to children between the ages of 10 to 14, based on their chronological age, but not necessarily where they were functioning. Mm-hmm. So I did have the opportunity to use a lot of your resources that year, which was a great experience, and to register as a children's yoga instructor. And then I signed up for a few other things. Yeah. So I decided to do some training in therapeutic yoga strategies, again with Shawnee. And then I also decided to register for a Kidding Around yoga training when they had a bundle, not expecting that that's what I would do for a living, just thinking I would learn a lot. So I had sort of joked last spring that although I didn't actually have any experience teaching yoga to preschoolers, that a lot of my day really looked like a day that could be spent with preschoolers. As an example, we would get ready for yoga class in the middle of class, and I only had a few students. Inevitably, someone, I need to go to the bathroom right now. Okay, time to do that. Yeah. Or like, I need help with opening my snack, or doing all of these other things that seemed more like preschool or kindergarten behavior, but that was okay. So at the end of the school year, I was already a K certified teacher, and then I started the process to become a licensee with the idea of I'm going to work just when my son, who is now 8, is at school. So it seemed like preschools would be the ideal fit. So that is what I started looking for over the summer, very slowly. So that is sort of how this all.
Right. And I love that you taught for 20 years. You have the background working with children, right? And then you spent this last year learning, taking different courses, sort of getting a lot of tools and ideas in your toolkit, right?
Yeah.
And then I'm curious about, because this is common. We do hear this a lot in our community too, that folks have been teaching for a long time and they want to start their own business. Either they retire or they want to try something different. I'm curious for you, what was it that gave you that bravery, that kind of like the fire in your belly to make that switch? Because that is not easy, right? You're in a secure a job teaching in a school. Like what did you have to do to overcome any fears or anything? Or was it just sort of seamless? It's just like, this is what I meant to do. I'm just going to go do it.
Well, I had left teaching in public school in 2018. So I had left my job with a pension and benefits. So I'd been teaching as an independent contractor since then.
Right.
So it wasn't quite the total adjustment as it might have been for someone else having just left public school or private school with benefits. So I was already in kind of an odd situation.
Yeah, right.
But yeah, I just felt like I wanted to be able to work doing what I wanted to do and be able to say, yes, I want to do this, or no, I don't want to do this, and do it on my own schedule around what would work best for my family.
Yeah, I love it. That's so
yeah.
great. So talk to me about now. So now you've done a great job since the summer, right? You've secured some preschool yoga classes. What does it look like? How do you plan? What's that process for you? How do you plan? Do you have the same theme or the same class for the week? Because how many classes are you teaching now a week?
It depends.
Yeah.
So last week I had a less busy week than this week because I'm at one preschool every week and another preschool every other week.
Right.
And then I teach a preschool age class at my local public library. Okay. And then I have some other preschool age programs starting next week and into January. So at the first preschool, and this was really a great idea, they gave me their like pacing guide for the year that included all of their themes. Perfect. So super organized. And, this way I could see, oh, it's this week, for example, last week and this week, the theme was Noah's Ark. So, it was just, okay, well, now I have the theme. I need to build resources and come up with ideas to use for that theme. And the other preschool, they are more focused on, they come up with themes based on what the children are interested in. Yeah. Which is also a great way to do that. So there, instead of having one theme, I see 7 different classes. So example, today I did the theme of Thanksgiving with all of my classes there. Right. But the previous time and then the next time I'm there, I pulled themes based on what they were doing. Yeah. And their classes. And the first week I was like, oh, well, if I'm gonna have 7 classes, I can write 7 different lesson plans, 7 different themes. Right. I was like, this is really an awful lot. And I felt like that was a lot to try to do, unless it was somewhere where you would be every day, in which case that would make more sense. So a lot of the time for their themes, I'm pulling common elements that I can use in multiple classes. And it is so nice that you have so many resources when I have themes from like teddy bears to pumpkins to pollination. So almost always I can come up with some resources I can use from kids yoga stories, which is great, especially for coming up with visuals for each class.
Okay. All right. So it sounds like a combination. It sounds like you're getting, in one situation, you're getting a list from the school, like here's our themes, right? And then other situations, you're finding what's meaningful or relevant for the children that week, which is really special, right? And then you're also looking at, okay, I've got all these classes at this one school. How can I add some common elements across all the classes? So I'm not creating 7 different classes in one day, because like you said, that's a lot. And probably some seasonal ones, right? Some seasonal and some holiday.
And for my class, at the library, some weeks I pick something that I've already touched upon earlier in the week.
Right.
And some weeks I'm like, oh, I really feel like putting together a yoga class with this theme. Or, oh, I have this great new resource from Kids Yoga Stories I want to use.
So
it
that's
just,
another one, is something that you're passionate about, that you're interested in, and that'll come through in how you present, right? Because you're excited about a particular topic.
yes. And
Yeah,
last week, because I'll have 4 more classes at the library before the end of the year, I did ask them for themes.
Right.
And some of the themes they came up with were holiday related that I'm not allowed to use at the library.
Right.
But we sort of quickly talked about, well, we can't do something for this holiday, but or any holiday. We can do a theme of snow at the end of the year.
Right.
We're not likely to have snow in Charlotte in December, but
right.
you know.
But it's always fun for the children to learn about different weather,
Yes.
right? Different situations.
Yes.
So talk to me now about the actual. So now you've done your preparation, got all your props, you're all organized, you get there. Talk to me about how you actually execute. Do you have like a beginning, middle, and end, kind of like a story? Like, is there always like an opening, like a poses or breathing or mindfulness, and then a closing circle? What's your structure of a lesson?
Well, actually, because my classes are kidding around yoga classes, they have a template that's a beginning, middle, and end. So I do pull everything, like plug everything into their template or class outline.
Yeah.
But if you didn't have a structure like that, another option would be the lesson planning materials you provided from the lesson plan workshop in the school yoga boot camp that had a flow for a beginning, a middle, and end.
Cool. And so what are the kinds of things you do in the beginning, for example?
So
is it the same every time, or you have a few different beginnings that you slot in?
There are a few different beginnings, and sometimes it depends on the setting of where I'm teaching and what would be appropriate in that setting, if that makes sense.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Yeah. So are you in a circle? Are you getting yoga helpers, or how do you start a class?
Oh, so at a school where kids can take off their shoes and socks when they come in, and at that school I have a room that I use for the morning, which is so nice. Yeah. So I have a mat outside, which is where they leave their shoes. So they're already coming in, and I have yoga mats ready for them to have a seat. And some of them always take their socks off. Some of them, it just depends. Yeah. So at that location, usually we are in more of like a rectangle shape with the yoga mats. Right. But it really just depends. Yeah. So, right. And at the library, it's kind of a similar setup, but they're bringing in their yoga mats, or some kids bring a towel or a blanket, but there's also a nice carpet there, right, which you don't have in all settings. So it really just depends. Okay, great. And then are you bringing extra props? Like, are you singing a song, or you have a candle, or you just jump right in? It depends. I often have my tingsha bells, and I have a triple chime. I call it my peace chime, depending on the setting where I am. So I do use both of those. Right. Perfect. Okay. So you've got your opening. They're in a square, say, right? And they're all there. They're all ready to practice yoga with you. Then do you go right into poses right there with the theme, or do you do sort of a bridge between the opening and the poses? For my K classes, there's more of an introduction, which is introducing meditation and mindfulness to kids. And then I use the K music, which some people may or may not be familiar with, but it's very, it's lots of fun music. And on occasion, I do sometimes incorporate other songs, but often I don't, just because they have their own music, and it is so much fun and it's great music. Right. So usually we will do a combination of the warm-up or a bliss and then some sun salutations. So usually that with younger kids, I'm usually doing rolling sun salutations. And I know in one of the K trainings, I saw a poster that was from you with sun salutations as well. So I know you have some great resources for that as well. Sorry, my cat is. I love it. wanting to join us.
She wants to practice her own yoga, cat
Yeah.
yoga. Yeah.
And so, yeah, it really just depends. And then a couple of K songs with yoga poses taught in addition to, and then some other activities. So when I teach at the library, one of their requests that I always include a story. So it's more of a yoga story time. And sometimes I do that at the preschools, but not always. It just depends. In some groups, that's very helpful for getting their attention and having some focus for some time on the carpet.
Yeah, right, exactly. And then, so you go through this flow, and then at the end, how do you finish? Do you finish again in that circle, or do you have something else that you do to complete the session?
From K classes, we end with the peaceful garden, which is just like a closing of Shavasana or yoga rest for the kids, but they're resting and relaxing and having a little bit of meditation and breathing at the end. So, and in my library class, sometimes I have a lot of time afterwards, and some of the kids do ask to take out some of the props, the tingsha bells or the chime or the pom-poms from Toga again. So it really just depends.
So tell us a story. Have you had a situation where, okay, you had your plan, you had it organized, your beginning, middle, and end, and it didn't necessarily go as planned, that maybe some children weren't engaged, or you could tell they weren't into the topic, or what do you do in that situation when you could tell some children just not into it?
It seems like anytime you're teaching kids, whether they are school-age kids or older kids than that, or preschoolers, you do sort of always have to go with the flow, that things are not always going to work out as planned. Just the same with doing any activity at home with your child, for anyone who's a parent. So I wouldn't say there's any time that I've had a theme and I've dropped the theme.
Okay.
But there's certainly times that I've greatly over planned, or I've planned a lesson for 25 minutes and then the class is a few minutes late coming in, and okay, well, I'm not going to have time for all of this.
Right.
Or, there's a fire drill or something else that happens in that time, and it's a situation of there isn't a way to get an extra 5 minutes,
right,
which there would be if I was somewhere else in my own classroom all day. So yeah, sometimes that definitely happens.
Have a plan, be prepared, and then go with the flow, right? And read the room, right? So tell us about a time where you were teaching preschool yoga, and there's got to be a moment where you felt like, oh, I meant to do this, right? Because you took a risk having your own business, but there must be a time where you thought, oh my goodness, this is where I meant to be. Like, tell us what happened with that child or the children, and what was going on, and how did it make you feel?
Okay. And actually, I'm thinking back to a situation where I was not at a preschool. I was working in a therapeutic setting. And this was the first time I had taught a yoga class for kids with their parents. And there were a couple of 2-year-olds and there were a couple of older children. And I was a little nervous about that. And they came in, and a couple of the kids were crying and very upset with their parents. And I was thinking, like, oh no, how's this one gonna go? And I was thinking, well, I wasn't charging for the class, so at least I didn't feel like that was the pressure of what if it doesn't go well and they paid for it. So that would definitely be a suggestion, trying something in a new setting, doing a demo class,
right?
A way to see how you work in that setting or school, and also how it all goes for you before committing to doing something. And I had taken out poppets as a way to get attention of younger kids, and I had some pom-poms, but the larger ones, because I was nervous about using small pom-poms with little kids. But it did seem like the puppets were a way to get attention for kids that weren't necessarily sure what was going on. And someone brought me today to this kind of unusual place, or I've been here before, but not for doing that. So it seems like poppets work well for a lot of younger friends, and pom-poms, and just sharing some different activities that you could do with pom-poms that are mindful, but not necessarily going to seem like yoga to a child, but that's okay. So a lot of times we do toga, yoga for our toes, or pom-pom poppers, where you're holding a pom-pom and flipping your hands up to try to catch it.
Right.
And actually, your breathing cards have a lot of activities that work well with pom-poms. With the straw was one of them.
Right.
So I'm trying to think if there were any other ones that were in there that I missed with the pom-poms. I would grab that card deck, but it's in my car.
Yeah, I think that's the one with pom-poms. If we talk a lot about the like, yes,
those are the cards.
Yeah, like feathers or flowers anyway. So then you've got this demo, and how did it go?
That really wasn't more of a demo. I'd really been trying to get a class started there for the last year, and no one had been particularly interested.
Yeah.
So people were finally interested when it was free, but that was just kind of where it ended up, at least for now. And unfortunately, it's just too far for me to drive weekly to offer a free class, but you never know what will happen in the future.
Right, right. Awesome. So what about now? Is there a situation with the preschoolers that you're working with now that you could tell they were getting it? Is there any story you can think of, any moment where you feel like the children were like, oh, this is cool. Like maybe a child, took a deep breath, or they helped each other, or they were in a pose, or is there anything you can share about a successful preschool moment?
Sure. And I use in all of my classes the 4-finger tapping. So peace begins with me, which I know we did a little in the boot camp with you as well, I'm sure. And just the kids that are making the connection of that, because I don't see any of them every week. It's always a rotation. And just kids remembering that, and even saying, oh, we practiced that at school, or we did that before or after nap time, or, oh, I did that at home. And I feel like if that is the one takeaway that kids remember and share with their family, that's great. And it's giving them some strategies they can use every day in any setting. And as my son pointed out, that works in the pool over the summer.
Right.
He said, wondering if it would work in water, which I thought was a funny observation. But yeah.
I love it. So what would you say to preschool yoga teachers that was maybe your favorite resource or resources? What are the things that you kind of have in your toolkit everywhere you go? What do you love most of all that all teachers should have?
That is a tricky question, but I feel like your book of the 105 poses.
108 poses, yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
It's such a great resource, whether it's with preschoolers or even with bigger kids, whether it's you have time for 5 yoga poses in your day, maybe as a transition or an inside activity, or coming inside for recess. But I feel like that is such a great resource for coming up with themes.
Is that the 105 pose posters? So
yes.
All the posters. Okay, gotcha. Yeah.
Yeah. And then as I have so many of your resources, I was trying to start putting things together. So for some of those, I was like, oh, wait, there's a coloring page I have for you that works well with that. I'll slide that in there. Yes. Or, oh, wait, you have this book that goes so well with that.
Right. Yes, theme. You're really good at the themes. You're pairing books and posters and cards and all those together. I love that.
I tried to. When I first started my kids yoga teacher training, and it was mentioned like themes for yoga classes, and I was like, okay, like letting go, like
right.
Was, oh wait, these aren't really themes for little kids.
Like, right. It could be, for sure.
But stepping back from the adult yoga themes, although some of your things with affirmations and mantras also would work well for adult classes. But yeah, definitely lots of fun themes for kids classes. And if it's a situation where you're not given a theme you have to focus on, going with themes that interest the kids.
Yeah, right, exactly. Love it.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for taking the time. It's amazing. I know you're in between, you know, being at home, picking up your son, and then here, there, and everywhere with your preschool classes. So I really appreciate you taking the time. So how can we find you? Because I know you have an online presence now, right? How can we find you online? You've got Instagram, is that right?
Yes, Instagram and Facebook, and it's Kidding Around Yoga with Synthia. And my name is actually with an S.
Great. Awesome. I will put that in the notes too in this video to make sure people can find you. Wonderful. Thank you.
I'll also share my website information as well.
Okay, great. Perfect. Wonderful. Thank you
And
so
actually,
much.
that changed from Kidding Around Yoga. So what I posted in the chat and in the Facebook group is the most recent one, but there's still like a link connecting people from the original one.
Okay, fantastic. Great. Thank you so much, Synthia. I really appreciate it.
You're
Thank
welcome.
you so much.